afternoon. The Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing Committee is called to order. Today is Tuesday, February the 6th, 2018. I do detect a quorum. We have two formal items on our agenda and one informal. The two formal ones are Resolution RS 2018-1024, which approves an agreement between the Metro Board of Health and Metro Government and the Tennessee Department of State for the provision of administrative law judges. Do I have a motion on that one?
Motion.
Second. What does that do exactly? Do y'all know?
Yeah, I do.
Recognize.
So essentially, it is the appeal and due process for decisions such as termination that would be considered before the commission. So if a department, for example, offers a termination, suspension, some kind of reprimand that affects someone's employment, they have a right to appeal their department head's determination. That would go through an ALJ process, which is obviously an independent body. That's required by the Administrative Procedures Act, which I think we became subject to in 2008. So it's an independent review, and then those...
Is that state ALG? I mean,
Is that what we're doing, paying the state for the ALJs? Is that what this is? Okay.
It is. But it's for those kinds of matters for us.
And then how does that interact with civil service and other?
So once those are heard by an ALJ, those orders are then presented to the commission for their consideration and final determination. But it's an independent, it's a due process for employees as an independent review for final actions such as termination.
So the ALJ's opinion is not binding, though?
It is not binding on the commission, but I believe it carries quite a bit of weight. Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The second formal item of business is Resolution RS 2018-1025, which approves Amendment 2 to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to provide reemployment services and eligibility assessment services to help unemployment insurance claimants to return to work faster. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Would you like to summarize that for us?
The summary actually covers it pretty well. So this is another one of the federal grant fundings where this money is specifically provided to unemployment insurance recipients to get trained to go back to work.
How much money is it?
It's about $25,000.
Okay.
All right. Is there a motion?
Yeah.
We got a second. Yep.
Yep.
I'll vote to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the last item, and I appreciate everyone's patience. I know we've had a lot of discussion in the council and from among constituents with regard to a supplemental appropriation of emergency funding for Metro General Hospital. That supplemental appropriation does have ramifications for other aspects of the budget, which include a potential hiring freeze, and the Finance Department had sent communication to the Metro Council members previously, partly at my request, but clarifying that hiring and promotion freeze does not apply to emergency responders. Of course, that was at the approximately $13 million mark, and in discussion in Budget and Finance yesterday, there's talk about going a little bit even larger than that for an appropriation which may require further budgetary scrutiny. And since this is the Personnel Committee, and we do have several members who are of this committee who have a lot of experience with civil service and promotions and things of that nature, I just wanted to have an opportunity to have a discussion about that with representatives from Human Resources as well as Finance and answer any remaining questions you have.
I would add that communication came from both of us because the two of us did collaborate and tried to be as fair as we could to the departments in terms of the review of any submissions that were already in our queue and how we implemented this and how we could cause the least impact to services. That has always been kind of our focus all along, is we want to make sure that services are continued so that we do this in a thoughtful way. Shannon, you want to add?
100% echo. The communication that did come from both of us, but that was after heavy collaboration over a 48 business hour period. And coming to commonality, really trying to balance both fiscal needs and employees' needs. But unequivocally, some of the, obviously, frontline emergency personnel, where they reside, and I think that's broader than just police and fire. If that's with, sheriff's office or DEC now, those are going to keep grant-funded positions should be able to continue because those don't have a budgetary impact. So this isn't, I really agree that we try to be as thoughtful as we could anywhere in the process. So anything that's on the street, anybody who's in the process of interviewing, they're not going to be held up. They're not going to be subject to an additional review.
So you're saying people that are already in the process can be hired?
Yeah, if essentially for the most part, I think
everything.
Every single, and in fact, the couple we were going to do an additional review on, I think already passed most of the flying colors. So anybody who's already been through this process is not going to be resubjected to it. So if a department had already gotten that
we were not
approval
going
this
to
fiscal
hold
year,
them. Yeah, we were not going to do a bait and switch on them if they already had approval to proceed.
yes.
Everybody sitting in this room has been around the metro government for several years. Every time we come up short because we spend too damn much money somewhere else, it falls on the employees. I would not vote for nothing that'll cause a freeze on the employees. We can stop the transit plans, that's what it takes, whatever. But if one employee suffers, I'm not voting for it.
So, to follow up on that, right now we have an amendment that was passed out of budget that I guess what I'm hearing is what was worded in the budget committee is a little bit different what is in writing before us. Is that correct?
What was approved last night, I think, out of Budget and Finance was different than the recommendation that was made from the administration.
Right. No, given that. Okay. So what was approved last night,
And I've not seen that in writing, so I don't want to try to summarize that.
So what was passed out of budget last night does not include a hiring freeze.
No.
But is the hiring freeze still potentially?
I think that's the thing is I have not seen the revised
It does.
and
So it does. And how long is that hiring freeze for?
in terms of from my perspective, from a finance department perspective, I am trying to assess this year's budget situation. Okay, and that fund balance issue and trying to restore fund balance. So I would say that we would get to the end of this fiscal year and reassess at that point to see if we were able to get to that 5%.
Okay, so let me make sure that I'm hearing and can repeat back what you said.
Okay.
Is that the hiring freeze is at least through January?
Through June.
June
Yes, at least
30th.
through June.
June 30th, and then at that time, is that something that the council would reassess, or you reassess that? So what we do tonight could be an indefinite, there's no definitive end on that.
I would say that
Last time.
Shannon and I would reassess that need as we got closer to July, because the hiring freeze does not require Metro Council approval.
Correct.
And so
let me ask
you-
we could still be on a hiring freeze next December, next July 2019, we could still be on a hiring freeze is what I'm hearing you say.
I'm saying that I can't tell you today how long
When it
that will
would end.
last.
When you say a hiring freeze, let me see if I'm clear. If a police officer resigns or leaves for whatever reason, or fire, well, you said it's not affecting those.
We are not.
Don't use those classifications.
But-
So like a water
Let's say somebody
department
in the water
employee.
department leaves the water department, you can't replace that person, or is it adding new positions?
No, it means that it would actually, you would have to review those positions. And they'd have
would
to be
make it the
scrutinized for
request.
whether or not they were essential service employees.
How long did the last one last? Hiring freeze and where people didn't get their increments or anything? How long did that last?
Hiring freeze, I think, is
It's
different
different.
than not getting increments. And I would
How long
say,
did it last? That's
even
all.
though the hiring and promotion process is a process that is overseen and coordinated by HR, the hiring freeze component is a fiscal determination that is not made by our office. But it is our goal to make sure that we are lock and step. So, I think, Talia has a fiscal responsibility in her role. So the decision to make a hiring freeze, I think, in order to make sure that the fiscal needs of our city are met, as a determination from finance. But because this is a process that
We've got to collaborate
we
on
have
how
to
to make
collaborate and coordinate.
So does this hiring freeze affect the pay plan that we put into place last year, the 3-year pay plan?
That's totally
different.
different.
Okay, so
Shannon,
this is
you wanna
not
speak to
touching
that?
that at all?
Well,
None of that will change.
I can tell you that last year, and I'm uniquely qualified to say that because I was sitting up there when you passed it, but the HR department proposed a 3-year pay plan that was adopted by the council last year, and this is year 1. So unless that legislation is changed, those will proceed if and until that legislation was ever changed.
Okay. We have about 4 minutes remaining, and Councilmember Roten had a question or a point to
On our
make.
public safety positions, how short are we on hiring right now for what we're supposed to have?
64 short in the fire department.
And that, those departments are going to have to tell us. I'm not sure where they are on their recruitments right now.
And
again, that communication that we sent to the departments we're not pulling this trigger until something actually happens, because we don't know what will happen with the vote in terms of what the final number will be.
And for right now, one of the agreements that Tanya and I both agreed on are for those positions that are continuously posted. We just have a hard time putting
they'll
bodies
stay
in seats because we just can't find enough qualified people.
Right.
That for right now, those aren't being touched. So those that are continuously posted, they're not like a one and done, replacing a body. But it wouldn't surprise me that we have police classifications that are continuously posted or fire classifications.
And one outside of even the public safety realm are auto mechanics and fleet. We agreed that we were going to leave those out there because it's so hard to recruit and find mechanics.
I would say when you're looking at recruitment and where we're having the hardest time sourcing and retaining candidates would not just be public safety, which is obvious right now, and that's on a national level. Public safety, a number of IT positions, and ironically, under general services, a number of fleet positions, despite tremendous efforts.
So what we're saying is that we were really thoughtful when we looked at that. It was not like we were just going to look at one class. We had a very long discussion around specific classes.
We all know how we get people to apply for positions, though.
Pay them. That's right.
Councilmember Murphy,
So,
and then we
I
probably
guess-
better wrap up.
So this is more towards my fellow council members is, if we're going this way where we've got to do a hiring freeze to balance general, basically put a hold on our other departments to balance general out or whatnot, all of the uncomfortableness that we felt and we heard in budget committee, and if you weren't here, please go back and watch how it was a lot of heated emotions yesterday. A lot of the uncomfortableness that I think we are all feeling on the council with this vote tonight. Uncomfortable being, we feel like we're having to pick favorites and things like that. I want us to remember these feelings and these emotions the next time an economic development deal is ahead of us, or next time we have a property tax abatement or a payment in lieu of or a redevelopment district, because we were giving up those taxpayer dollars that go into the general fund that help pay for the fire, the police, the water, because I don't think we want to get into a situation again where we have to be concerned or calling the administration to say, when my constituent calls 911, is an ambulance going to show up? When there's a water main burst in front of a neighbor's house, is the water department going to show up? And so I'm asking y'all as my fellow personnel committee members, and I know I can trust you to do this, that we need to remind our fellow committee member or council members of this next time we have an ECD deal that or corporate welfare deal ahead of us. So
Thank you so much for your comments, Councilmember Murphy, and we've got just 1 minute and before we wrap, and I just wanted, for those who are watching perhaps at home, if an employee or a prospective employee has a question about how this might impact him or her, who should that employee contact?
You know what, I would say that they need to contact, I would say contact their employee. I would go to their HR manager first
To their
in
HR
their
manager.
department, and we'll be able, depending on the nature of the concern, they can either be directed to the HR employee rep that supports that department, or the OMB analyst to the extent that they have questions there.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, thank you especially to Finance and HR for joining us today, and thanks for my colleagues, and we'll conclude this for today. Thank you.
Yes, good.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thanks for running a few minutes behind.